Captain Jake Morrison stared at the stars through the viewing port of the UES Aurora. His ship had been exploring the Vega system for 3 weeks now, checking planets for possible human colonies. It was routine work, but Jake never got tired of seeing new worlds. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's communications officer and one of the best codebreakers in the human fleet. Her fingers moved quickly over her console as she tried to make sense of what she was hearing. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. "It's an alien transmission, but it's heavily encrypted. The signal is bouncing between 2 different sources. One seems to be from a Zephyrian ship and the other from a Crithari vessel." Jake frowned. The Zephyrians were crystal-like beings who had made contact with humans 50 years ago. They seemed friendly enough, though they kept to themselves mostly. The Crithari were insect-like creatures who had been trading partners with humans for about 30 years. Both species claimed to want peaceful relations with humanity. "Can you break the encryption?" Jake asked. Maya smiled. "Give me a few hours. This is some serious code work, but I think I can crack it." Dr. Alex Bennett, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, looked up from his research station. "It's odd that those 2 species would be talking to each other in secret. They're from completely different parts of the galaxy. As far as we know, they barely know each other exists." 3 hours later, Maya called Jake back to her station. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said quietly. "I've broken their code and what they're saying. It's not good." Jake put on the headphones and listened to the translated conversation. What he heard made his blood run cold. The Zephyrian voice was speaking. "The Purification Council has reached its final decision. The human virus must be eliminated completely. 17 species have agreed to participate in the cleansing," the Crithari replied. "Our deep space observers confirm that the humans now have colonies on 43 worlds. Their expansion rate has increased by 30% in the last decade. If we wait any longer, they will become impossible to stop. The attack will begin in exactly 6 months," the Zephyrian continued. "All human worlds will be hit at the same time. We cannot allow any of them to escape and warn the others." Jake ripped off the headphones and stared at Maya. "Are you sure this translation is correct?" "I've checked it 5 times, Captain. They're planning to wipe out our entire species." Dr. Bennett had gone completely white. 17 species? How is that possible? "We've only made contact with 8 alien races and they all seemed friendly." "Apparently we've been living in a lie," Jake said grimly. "Maya, how long until we can get back to Earth?" "At maximum speed, about 2 weeks. Then we leave now. This information has to reach Earth immediately." The journey back to Earth felt like the longest 2 weeks of Jake's life. Every day, Maya continued to intercept and decode alien transmissions. What they learned made the situation even worse. The aliens had been watching humanity for over a century. They had detailed files on every human colony, every military ship, and every major city on Earth. They knew exactly where humans lived, how many soldiers they had, and what weapons they used. But worse than that, the aliens saw humans as a disease that needed to be cured. In their secret meetings, they called humanity the viral species and the galactic infection. They believed that humans bred too fast, explored too much, and would eventually take over the entire galaxy if left unchecked. When the Aurora finally reached Earth, Jake was rushed to a meeting with Commander Lisa Park, the head of human intelligence. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had spent her whole career protecting humanity from threats. "Show me everything," she said without wasting time on greetings. Jake and Maya presented all the evidence they had gathered. Commander Park listened without speaking, but Jake could see the anger building in her eyes. 17 species, she said finally. "We thought we had friends out there. We thought we were building a peaceful future among the stars." "It gets worse," Maya said. "According to their communications, they've been planning this for decades. Every friendly meeting, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange was just them studying us to find our weaknesses." Dr. Bennett added, "They're particularly worried about our adaptability. In their files, they note that humans learn faster than any other species they've encountered. They're afraid that if they don't act now, we'll become too advanced to defeat." Commander Park stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city. Millions of people lived their daily lives below, completely unaware that their extinction had been planned by the species they thought were their friends. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 months until the attacks begin, Jake replied. But Commander, there's something else. In all their planning documents, they keep mentioning that they expect this to be easy. They think our weapons are primitive and our defenses are weak. Commander Park turned back to face them, and for the first time since they had arrived, she smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They think our weapons are primitive, she repeated slowly. How long has it been since they updated their intelligence on our military capabilities? Maya checked her notes. Based on their references, their newest information is about 5 years old. They seem to think we're still using the same technology we had when we first met them. 5 years, Commander Park said, and her smile grew wider. They have no idea what we've been building in the deep space research stations. They don't know about the weapons programs we've been hiding in the asteroid belt. They've been so busy planning our deaths that they forgot to keep watching what we were actually doing. She pressed a button on her desk, and within minutes, 3 of the highest-ranking military officers in the human Space Force entered the room. Gentlemen, Commander Park said, it appears that our long-held fears about hostile aliens were correct. They're coming to kill us all in 6 months. But they've made one very important mistake. What's that? Asked Admiral Sullivan. They think they know what they're up against, Commander Park replied. They have no idea that the humans they studied 5 years ago no longer exist. We've been preparing for this day without even knowing it. Now we get to show them what happens when someone threatens the survival of the human race. As Jake listened to the military leaders begin planning humanity's response, he realized something important. The aliens were right to be afraid of humans. They just didn't understand that their fear would become the very thing that destroyed them. The meeting continued long into the night. But Jake could already see that this would not be the easy victory the aliens expected. They had planned humanity's end, but they were about to discover that humans were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked into the emergency meeting room, where the most powerful people in human space had gathered. The news that Captain Morrison had brought back from the Vega system had changed everything. Humanity was no longer exploring the galaxy in peace. They were now in a fight for their very existence. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Sullivan began, we have 5 months and 3 weeks to prepare for the largest attack in human history. 17 alien species want us dead, and they think it will be easy. She pressed a button and a holographic display showed the locations of all human colonies, 43 worlds scattered across dozens of star systems, each one marked for destruction by the Alien Alliance. They plan to hit every human world at the same time, she continued. They want to make sure none of us survive to fight back or warn others. But they've made several mistakes that we can use against them. Dr. Ryan Carter, head of Advanced Weapons Research, stood up next. He was a thin man with gray hair who looked more like a university professor than someone who built weapons of war. But his appearance was deceiving. Dr. Carter had been secretly developing weapons that could change the course of any battle. For the past 10 years, we've been working on projects that even most of our own military doesn't know about, Dr. Carter said. We told ourselves we were just being careful, preparing for possibilities. Now we know we were preparing for this exact moment. Activated another holographic display that showed a series of space stations hidden in asteroid fields. Throughout human space, Project Hellstorm has been building kinetic weapons platforms in deep space, he explained. These weapons can launch metal rods at near light speed. When they hit a target, they release more energy than nuclear bombs, but without the radiation. The military leaders in the room looked impressed, but Dr. Carter wasn't finished. Project Reaper has created autonomous fighting ships, he continued. These are AI-controlled vessels that can think and adapt during battle. We've built over 10,000 of them, and they're hidden throughout our territory. And Project Nova Strike? Asked Admiral Sullivan. Dr. Carter's expression became very serious. Antimatter weapons. We've learned to create and store antimatter in large quantities. A single Nova Strike warhead can destroy an entire enemy fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Hughes stepped forward. He was a younger man with sharp eyes who had been chosen to lead humanity's most secret military unit. The Shadow Fleet is ready, he reported. We have 300 military ships disguised as civilian vessels. They look like cargo haulers, passenger transports, and mining ships. But each one is actually a heavily armed warship. They're positioned throughout known space, waiting for orders. Colonel Hughes activated his own display, showing the positions of the hidden fleet. The alien species had been watching human civilian ships for years, never realizing that many of them were actually weapons platforms in disguise. The Aliens have been so focused on our official military that they completely missed our shadow forces, he said with satisfaction. Meanwhile, on the colony world New Austin, civilian engineer Beth Taylor was working on a different kind of problem. She had discovered something disturbing in the planet's communication networks. Noah, come look at this, she called to her partner, cryptographer Noah Adams. Noah hurried over to her workstation, where lines of code filled multiple screens. I found quantum infiltration signatures in our networks, Beth explained. The aliens have been using quantum technology to spy on us without us knowing. They can listen to our communications, watch our activities, and track our movements. Noah studied the data for several minutes before his face grew pale. This isn't just spying, Beth, this is complete surveillance. They know everything about us. Not anymore, Beth said with determination. I figured out how their system works, and if I can understand it, I can blind it. For the next 3 weeks, Beth and Noah worked day and night to create a counter-surveillance system. They called it Blackout, and it was designed to not only block alien spying, but to feed them false information instead. If this works, Noah said as they prepared to test their system, the aliens will think they're still watching us, but they'll only see what we want them to see. The test was successful beyond their hopes. Not only did Blackout block alien surveillance, but it also allowed them to trace the spying network back to its sources. For the first time, humans would know where the aliens were before the aliens knew where humans were. Back on Earth, the military buildup was happening at an incredible pace. Factories that had been producing civilian goods were quickly converted to make weapons and ships. Space stations that had been used for research were transformed into military bases. General Marcus Stone was in charge of Earth's planetary defense. He was an older soldier who had fought in the only war humans had experienced in space, a brief conflict with space pirates 20 years earlier. The aliens expect to find a few human military ships protecting each world, General Stone explained to his staff. What they'll actually find is the largest defensive network ever created. He showed them plans for orbital weapons platforms, hidden missile bases, and automated defense systems that could react faster than any human pilot. Every asteroid near our worlds now contains weapons, he continued. Every space station has been armed. Every piece of space debris has been turned into a potential weapon. When they arrive, they won't be attacking planets. They'll be flying into carefully prepared killing fields. As the months passed, humanity's preparations continued at a frantic pace. The alien surveillance network showed them only what humans wanted them to see. Normal civilian activities, routine military patrols, and no sign that humanity knew what was coming. But beneath the surface, the most advanced military force in human history was taking shape. Weapons that had only existed in theory were being built and deployed. Ships that had never been tested in real combat were being positioned for the fight of humanity's life. Dr. Carter's teams worked around the clock to mass-produce the new weapons. Colonel Hughes's Shadow Fleet moved into final positions. Beth Taylor's Blackout system spread throughout human space, creating a wall of false information that kept the aliens blind to what was really happening. With 1 month left before the alien attack, Admiral Sullivan held a final meeting with Earth's leadership. They think they're about to destroy a peaceful species that barely knows how to fight, she said. They have no idea that they're actually about to attack the most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever seen. Are we ready? Asked the President of Earth. Admiral Sullivan looked around the room at the military leaders, scientists, and engineers who had worked so hard to prepare for this moment. Madam President, she said, when those alien fleets arrive, they're going to discover that they've made the worst mistake in galactic history. They wanted to eliminate humanity because we were too dangerous to live alongside them. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold and certain. They were right. The alien attack began exactly as planned. At precisely 0800 Universal Time, 17 different alien fleets emerged from hyperspace at 17 different human worlds. The Purification Council had spent years planning this moment, and everything was going according to their calculations. On the bridge of the Zephyrian command ship, Admiral Kexthera watched as his crystal fleet approached the human colony of New Boston. His sensors showed exactly what their intelligence had predicted. A small human settlement with minimal defenses and a few outdated patrol ships. Begin the cleansing, Admiral Kexthera commanded. Eliminate all human presence on this world. But as the Zephyrian ships moved into attack formation, something unexpected happened. The space around them suddenly filled with massive explosions that tore through their crystalline hulls, like they were made of glass. "What is happening?" Kexthera demanded. His tactical officer's crystal body was flashing red with alarm. "Unknown weapons, Admiral. They appear to be gravitational mines. They're disrupting our molecular structure." On the hidden defense platform Retribution, Captain Tyler Brooks watched the alien fleet being destroyed by his gravitational minefield. The mines were one of Dr. Carter's newest weapons, devices that could twist space-time itself to tear apart anything that came too close. "First blood to humanity," Captain Brooks said quietly. Then he activated his communication system. "All units, this is Retribution. The aliens have arrived and they're dying just as we planned. The Zephyrian fleet tried to retreat, but more surprises were waiting for them." From what appeared to be empty space, the stealth destroyer Silent Thunder materialized like a ghost. Commander Olivia Walsh had been waiting for this moment. Her ship used experimental cloaking technology that made it completely invisible to alien sensors. She had watched the entire alien fleet arrive without them knowing she was there. "Target their command ship," she ordered her weapons officer. "Antimatter torpedoes, full spread." The Silent Thunder fired its weapons and immediately vanished again, phasing back into its cloaked state. The antimatter torpedoes struck the Zephyrian command ship directly, and the explosion was so bright it could be seen from the planet's surface. "Admiral." Kexthera had just enough time to realize that the humans had been expecting. Then before his ship disintegrated around him, across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out at every target world. The aliens had expected to find helpless human colonies. Instead, they found weapons and defenses beyond their worst nightmares. At the colony world Haven, the Crithari swarm arrived with over 1 million biological ships. The insect-like aliens had always relied on overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers. Their strategy had worked against every other species they had fought. But the humans were not like other species. Commander Danny Foster was waiting for them aboard his ship, the Phase Walker. This vessel used technology that allowed it to exist partially outside normal spacetime, making it nearly impossible to hit, while allowing it to strike at will. "Crithari swarm detected," Foster announced to his crew. "Beginning attack run." The Phase Walker moved through the alien formation like a shark through a school of fish. It would appear for just long enough to fire its weapons, then vanish back into phase space before the aliens could respond. Each attack destroyed dozens of Crithari ships, and there was nothing they could do to fight back. But the real surprise for the Crithari was waiting closer to the planet. As their swarm approached Haven's atmosphere, the space around them suddenly came alive with movement. 10,000 Reaper drones emerged from hidden launch bays throughout the system. These AI-controlled fighters were smaller and faster than any human pilot could manage, and they fought with perfect coordination. The Crithari had brought 1 million ships to overwhelm the humans with numbers. But the humans had brought 10 million automated weapons platforms. For every Crithari ship there were 10 Reaper drones waiting to destroy it. The battle was over in less than an hour. The Crithari swarm, which had conquered a dozen worlds in the past century, was completely wiped out. Not a single alien ship escaped to report what had happened. But nowhere was the alien shock greater than at Earth itself, where the main Crithari fleet had come to destroy humanity's homeworld. This was supposed to be the easiest target, with the most important prize. General Marcus Stone watched from his command center as millions of alien ships approached Earth. The sight should have been terrifying, but Stone was smiling. "Activate all defensive systems," he ordered. "Show them what we've built." Suddenly, every asteroid in Earth's solar system revealed its true nature. What the aliens had thought were pieces of space rock were actually weapons platforms, each one armed with enough firepower to destroy a city. The space around Earth erupted in a wall of energy beams, missile streams, and exotic weapons that the Crithari had never seen before. Their biological ships, which had evolved to resist conventional weapons, had no defense against humanity's advanced technology. But the humans weren't finished. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, the Reaper drone swarms launched. Millions of AI-controlled fighters poured out of Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, and the asteroid belt. The Crithari Queen commanding the Earth attack force tried to retreat, but she found that escape was impossible. The humans had surrounded their entire solar system with weapons, Every path back to hyperspace was blocked by defensive platforms that could destroy entire fleets. On Mars, Dr. Ryan Carter was watching the battle from his secret weapons laboratory. Everything was working exactly as he had hoped. The aliens had expected to fight the humans they had studied 5 years ago. Instead, they were facing weapons technology that was decades ahead of anything in their files. All Nova Strike platforms, prepare for final bombardment, he ordered. Throughout human space, the antimatter weapons that represented humanity's most devastating firepower prepared to fire. These weapons could destroy entire planets, and the humans had built thousands of them in secret. But they weren't aimed at planets. They were aimed at the fleeing remnants of the alien fleets. The Nova Strike bombardment lasted only minutes, but when it was over, the alien attack force had been completely destroyed. Of the 17 fleets that had come to eliminate humanity, only scattered survivors remained. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the assault ship New Horizon, was hunting down the last Zephyrian survivors near Vega. His ship's sensors could track the aliens even when they tried to hide. This is Captain Morrison to all Zephyrian vessels, he broadcast on their communication frequencies. Your Purification Council sent you here to eliminate humanity. You have failed. Now you get to go back and tell them what happens when someone threatens the human race. The few surviving Zephyrian ships fled into hyperspace, carrying news of the disaster back to their homeworlds. Similar messages were being sent throughout the galaxy as the handful of aliens who survived the attack began their journey home. They carried with them reports that would change everything the Purification Council thought they knew about humanity. The humans had not just survived the attack. They had crushed it so completely that it seemed impossible. Weapons that should not have existed had destroyed fleets that had conquered entire star systems. Defenses that the aliens had never imagined had turned every human world into a fortress. But most terrifying of all was the realization that the humans had been expecting them. Every trap, every weapon, every defensive position had been perfectly placed to counter the alien attack. The humans had not just won by accident. They had planned this victory down to the smallest detail. As the last alien survivors fled human space, they carried with them a message that would soon reach every world in the galaxy. Humanity had been right all along to be feared. The species that the aliens had tried to eliminate before they became too dangerous had just proven exactly how dangerous they really were. The war was far from over. In fact, for humanity, it was just beginning. The emergency session of the Purification Council took place on the ancient world of Veltar, deep in the heart of what had once been considered the safest region of the galaxy. Representatives from the 10 surviving species sat in their council chambers, trying to understand how their perfect plan had become a complete disaster. High Counselor Zekmoth of the Veltari spoke first, his tentacles trembling with fear. The reports from our survivors make no sense. The humans were supposed to have primitive weapons and weak defenses. How did they destroy 17 entire fleets? The Krathari Queen vessel Hixara clicked her mandibles in agitation. Our deep space observers reported that human technology had advanced, but not to this level. They had weapons we have never seen before, weapons that should not exist. They were expecting us, added Crystalline Admiral Genthek, one of the few Zephyrian commanders to survive the Earth assault. Every defense was in place. Every weapon was ready. They knew exactly when and where we would attack. But none of them understood the most important truth. While they were meeting in their emergency session, human ships were already moving toward their homeworlds. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the massive assault carrier Supremacy, watching as the largest military fleet in human history prepared for launch. Operation Prometheus was about to begin, and it would teach the galaxy a lesson about the consequences of threatening humanity. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Sullivan, she broadcast to the assembled ships. The aliens wanted to wipe us out because they were afraid of what we might become. Today, we show them that their fears were completely justified. The human fleet was unlike anything that had ever been seen in the galaxy. Dr. Carter's weapons teams had worked around the clock to build ships that incorporated, captured alien technology, but improved it beyond alien comprehension. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded the New Horizon, an assault carrier armed with weapons that could level entire cities. His ship was just one of hundreds in the attacking fleet. Captain, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, We're approaching the outer edge of Zephyrian space. Long-range sensors are detecting their defense fleets moving to intercept us. Let them come, Morrison replied. They're about to learn what human engineering can do when we're properly motivated. The Zephyrian defense fleet that came to stop the human advance was massive. Over 5,000 crystal ships, each one a masterpiece of alien technology that had taken decades to build. They had protected Zephyrian space for centuries, and their commanders were confident they could stop any invasion. They were wrong. Commander Danny Foster's ship, the Phase Walker, led the attack. The experimental vessel could move in and out of normal space-time, making it impossible for the aliens to target effectively. As the Zephyrian fleet opened fire, Foster's ship simply vanished, reappearing behind their lines to strike at their command vessels. Phase jump complete, Foster announced to his crew, beginning attack run on their flagship. The Phase Walker materialized directly above the Zephyrian command ship and fired its new gravitational beam weapons. The alien vessel, which had survived a dozen battles, was torn apart in seconds by forces that twisted space itself. But the real shock for the Zephyrians came when they realized that the Phase Walker was not alone. Hundreds of human ships began appearing throughout their formation, each one using technology that the aliens had never seen before. Captain Amy Collins commanded the Stormbreaker, a ship armed with weapons that could destabilize entire star systems. Her target was not just the Zephyrian fleet, but the star they were trying to protect. Stellar disruption weapon charged and ready, reported her weapons officer. Fire, Collins ordered. The weapon struck the Zephyrian sun, causing it to flare with deadly radiation. The crystal ships, which depended on solar energy for power, began losing their shields and weapons as their star became unstable. Within hours, the entire Zephyrian defense fleet was destroyed or fleeing. The humans had not just won the battle, they had made it impossible for the aliens to continue fighting. But this was only the beginning. Human forces were striking throughout alien space, and each attack was more devastating than the last. Dr. Rachel Ward, leading the Advanced Engineering Corps, had achieved something that should have been impossible. Her teams were taking captured alien technology and improving it faster than the aliens themselves could develop new defenses. The Crithari have been using biological ships for thousands of years, she explained to Admiral Sullivan during a strategy meeting. It took us 6 weeks to not only understand their technology, but to create viruses that can destroy their ships from the inside. And the Zephyrian crystal technology? The Admiral asked. We've learned to create resonance weapons that can shatter their hulls with sound waves. What took them millennia to perfect, we've turned into a weakness in less than a month. The psychological impact of the human attacks was even more devastating than the physical destruction. Colonel Eric Martinez was leading a propaganda campaign that sent messages throughout alien space. And these messages were designed to break the aliens' will to fight. People of the galaxy, his broadcast began. The Purification Council told you that humanity was a virus that needed to be eliminated. They were right. We are a virus. We adapt, we spread, and we survive no matter what you do to stop us. The messages continued day and night, reaching every alien world and ship. You tried to kill us because you were afraid of what we might become. Now you will see exactly what you have created. We are coming for you, and there is nowhere in the galaxy you can hide. The first alien homeworld to fall was the Crithari nest world of Hicks Prime. Commander Foster led the assault with a fleet of ships, equipped with the new biological weapons that Dr. Ward's teams had developed. The Crithari had built their civilization around massive hive cities that housed billions of their kind. These cities had stood for thousands of years and were supposed to be impregnable. They lasted less than 6 hours against human weapons. Deploy the biodisruptors, Foster ordered as his fleet approached the planet. The weapons released viruses that had been specifically designed to target Crithari biology. The aliens' own biological ships turned against them as the viruses spread through their defenses. Within hours, the planet's entire military force had been neutralized, but the humans weren't satisfied with just defeating the Crithari military. Captain Morrison's assault carrier New Horizon moved into orbital bombardment position. This is Captain Morrison to all Crithari on Hicks Prime, he broadcast to the planet below. Your queen sent fleets to destroy every human world and kill every human man, woman, and child. You wanted to commit genocide against our entire species. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. Now you will understand what genocide really means. The New Horizons weapons turned the surface of Hicks Prime into molten rock. The billion-year-old hive cities that had been the pride of Krathari civilization became smoking craters. The species that had planned to eliminate humanity was itself eliminated in a single day. Similar attacks were happening throughout the galaxy. Human fleets struck at 7 different alien homeworlds simultaneously, and each attack was more devastating than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrian crystal cities, which had stood for eons, were shattered by resonance weapons. The Veltari underwater cities were boiled away by weapons that could heat entire oceans. The Thexaran mountain fortresses were leveled by gravitational bombs that could move continents. But the most terrifying thing about the human attacks was not their power, but their precision. Human forces did not just destroy alien military targets. They eliminated the aliens' ability to ever threaten humanity again. Dr. Spencer Lee,
heading the new Xenological Research Division,
was studying the surviving alien populations with the same cold efficiency that the aliens had once used to study humanity. The remaining species fall into 3 categories, he reported to the human leadership. Those who are too primitive to be a threat, those who are too evolved to adapt quickly, and those who are simply too afraid to fight anymore. And your recommendation? Asked Admiral Sullivan. Complete subjugation, Dr. Lee replied without emotion. They proved that they cannot be trusted to coexist with humanity. The only way to ensure our safety is to ensure they can never threaten us again. As the human fleets continued their advance through alien space, the surviving members of the Purification Council began to understand the true magnitude of their mistake. They had feared that humans would become too dangerous to coexist with. They had been absolutely right. But instead of preventing that future, their attack had created it. Humanity had become the very monster they had tried to destroy, and now there was no force in the galaxy that could stop them. The roles had been completely reversed. The hunters had become the hunted, and the species that had planned extinction was now facing extinction itself. 1 year after the failed alien assault on humanity, the galaxy had become a very different place. Where once 17 proud species had ruled their own domains, now only scattered remnants remained, hiding in the dark spaces between stars and praying that the humans would not find them. Fleet Admiral Victoria Gray stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Supremacy, looking out at what had once been the capital world of the Zephyrian Empire. The planet below was now covered with human cities, and the crystal spires that had once reached toward the sky were being dismantled to build human technology. Admiral, reported Captain Lisa Wright, the last Zephyrian refugee fleet has been located. They're hiding in the Void Nebula, about 300 ships total. Any military vessels? Admiral Gray asked. No, ma'am. Just civilian transports carrying what's left of their population. Maybe 2 million survivors total. Admiral Gray nodded slowly. 2 million survivors from a species that had once numbered in the billions. It was a pattern that had been repeated across the galaxy as humanity claimed its new position as the dominant power. Let them live, she decided, but make sure they understand that they exist only because we allow it. The moment they try to rebuild their military, they join their homeworld in becoming space dust. Across the galaxy, human colonies now existed on thousands of worlds. Each one was protected by defense networks that made the old alien empires look like children playing with toys. No force in the galaxy could threaten a human world and hope to survive. Dr. Spencer Lee, now director of the Galactic Studies Institute, was completing his comprehensive analysis of the surviving alien species. His research had been thorough and had reached conclusions that would have shocked the humans of just 2 years ago. The evidence is clear, he reported to the Galactic Colonial Council. Most alien species in this galaxy are evolutionary dead ends. They reached a certain level of development and then stopped growing. They became comfortable with their technology and never pushed beyond it. He activated a holographic display showing the development patterns of different species over thousands of years. The Zephyrians had the same technology for over 10,000 years. The Krathari hadn't developed a new weapon in 5,000 years. The Veltari were using the same ship designs for 3,000 years. They became stagnant, while humans have advanced more in the past century than they did in entire ages. Council leader Janet Burns, who had been elected to lead humanity's new galactic government, asked the question that everyone was thinking, are you saying we're naturally superior to them? Dr. Lee considered his words carefully. I'm saying that we are fundamentally different. Humans adapt and evolve constantly. We never stop pushing boundaries or seeking improvements. Most alien species reach a comfortable level and stay there forever. That's why they feared us. And that's why they lost. Meanwhile, Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his successful leadership during the war, was leading the final expedition to hunt down the last remnants of the Purification Council. His fleet had tracked them to an ancient space station hidden in a dead star system. Captain Davis, take us in. Morrison ordered his pilot. Let's see what the architects of genocide have to say for themselves. The space station was old beyond measure, carved from an asteroid and hidden in the radiation shadow of a collapsed star. It had been the secret meeting place of the Purification Council for over a century, and now it would be their tomb. Morrison's Marines secured the station quickly. The few aliens remaining inside offered no resistance. They seemed to have been waiting for this moment. In the central chamber, Morrison found the records of every meeting the Purification Council had ever held. As he read through their files, he discovered something that made him smile grimly. Admiral Morrison to all ships, he broadcast. You need to hear this. He activated the recording system and began reading from the alien files. Debate Session 1847, the question of whether to attempt elimination of the human species. Council member Thexran Prime argues against the action. Morrison's voice carried clearly through the fleet communications as he read the ancient alien's words. If we attack the humans and fail to eliminate them completely, we will have created the very monster we sought to prevent. A species that believes it must destroy others to survive will become more dangerous than any natural predator. We will have taught them that the galaxy is a place where only the strongest survive, and humans may be stronger than all of us combined. The recording fell silent for a moment before Morrison continued. The vote was 16-1 in favor of the attack. Thexran Prime's warning was ignored. Throughout the human fleet, soldiers and officers listened to the words of the one alien who had understood the truth. The Purification Council had created their own worst nightmare by trying to prevent it. Morrison found more records, including detailed files on every aspect of human civilization. The aliens had studied humanity for over a century, analyzing everything from human art to human military tactics, but they had missed the most important thing about the human species. They understood that we adapt quickly, Morrison explained to his staff as they reviewed the files. They understood that we explore aggressively. They understood that we breed faster than most species, but they never understood what happens when you threaten our survival. The final entry in the alien files was from just before the attack began. It was a message from Thexran Prime, the one council member who had voted against the genocide. We have sealed our fate today. In trying to prevent human dominance of the galaxy, we have guaranteed it. When this attack fails, and it will fail, the humans will not simply defend themselves. They will ensure that no one can ever threaten them again. We will have created an empire that spans the stars, ruled by a species that now knows it must be feared to survive. Back on Earth, the Colonial Council was making decisions that would shape the future of the galaxy for thousands of years to come. The question was simple: what to do with the surviving alien populations? They tried to commit genocide against our entire species, argued General Marcus Stone. They studied us for a century, made detailed plans for our extinction, and launched simultaneous attacks on every human world. They cannot be trusted to coexist with us peacefully. But complete extermination makes us no better than they were, countered Dr. Sarah Martinez. The Council's ethics advisor, Council Leader Burns, looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leadership. These were people who had once explored the galaxy in peace, hoping to build friendships with alien species. The war had changed them, just as it had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The aliens themselves have given us our answer, she said finally. They declared that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to coexist with other species. Their own actions have proven that they were right. She activated a display showing the current state of the galaxy. Human colonies covered thousands of worlds. Human fleets patrolled every major star system. Human weapons platforms protected every important trade route. We are now the dominant species in this galaxy, Burns continued. Not because we chose to be, but because they forced us to become this. They wanted us extinct because they feared what we might become. Now they get to live with the consequences of that choice. The decision was unanimous. The surviving alien species would be allowed to exist, but only under human supervision. They would serve as subjects in the new human empire, their movements restricted, their technology controlled, their populations monitored. It was not the future that humanity had once envisioned when they first reached for the stars. But it was the future that the aliens had created when they chose genocide over coexistence. Years later, human children would learn about the Purification War in their schools. They would be taught that it was the moment when humanity proved its right to rule the galaxy. The lesson was simple and clear. Those who plan extinction had better not fail. Admiral Morrison, now retired, sometimes thought about the alien who had warned his people about attacking humanity. Thexeron Prime had understood something that the other aliens had missed. He had seen that humans were most dangerous when they were threatened. The galaxy now belonged to humanity, and the stars themselves bore witness to what happened when someone underestimated the species that had crawled up from a single, unremarkable world to rule them all. The aliens had been right to fear humanity. They had simply been wrong to think they could do anything about it. In the end, their fear had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. By trying to prevent human dominance, they had guaranteed it. By choosing war, they had created an empire that would last for millennia. And in the deepest irony of all, they had proven their own point. Humanity really was too dangerous to coexist with as equals. They just hadn't realized that this made them the problem, not the solution.